These recent tragedies have struck the very core of so many families and friends, and their pain has reverberated throughout our entire island. We are all hurting. We are all hurting. As a member of the community, we are hurting with you. Bermuda is a small island where we all intrinsically linked. And when one family or community is hurting, we all feel it. As a father, I can only begin to imagine the pain that mothers and fathers feel as they mourn the losses of their sons, young men with so much potential, and daughters who were taken far too soon. And I'm deeply saddened at the thought of those children who have been left to navigate a life without the love and guidance of their mother, and for the uncles and aunts and grandparents who experience the pain of losing children and grandchildren who they've loved and nurtured. Bermuda, in these dark times, we must continue to work to ensure a more hopeful future. We must collectively summon the strength inside of us and not allow our island to be defined by these tragedies, but by how we respond to them and to one another. We must unite to support those directly impacted by these devastating events. The losses that some families in our community have had to endure are unimaginable. And it is in these moments that we must provide them with the support systems that will help them in their time of grief and demonstrate to them that they are not alone. I want to reassure every Bermudian that their elected government is committed to work with Government House, who has responsibility for the police, to ensure the safety and well-being of our residents. We understand the anxiety and fear that these events have caused. And outside of policing, this government remains committed to investing in resources and programs to address the root causes of the issues that our communities face. Today, ministers will discuss the work being done in the Ministries of Health and National Security and the resources available to support our communities. As the Minister of Finance, I'm committed to ensuring that additional funds be allocated to support important initiatives that will further assist those in need in breaking the cycle of violence that our community has endured. The recent tragedies have shown that even more needs to be invested in tackling the root causes of violence, and this government will not ignore this reality and will continue to do its part. But the government cannot do this alone. We need strength and unity from all of Bermuda, working together as one. This is not the time to point fingers or play politics. These are not the problems of one political party or another, but matters that we must deal with together as Bermudians. I thank the local faith leaders, community leaders, charity leaders, sports club leaders, and others who've been vocal in their prayers for our island, visible in support for the families, and in their calls to show compassion and stand in solidarity while using the hurt we collectively feel as a reminder that we must redouble our efforts for positive change. It was touching to see a number of individuals gathered in harmony and prayer on the cabinet lawn early this week. And I encourage all of us not to lose that energy or mentality that we must work together to overcome this. All families and residents are impacted by violence in our community. And though the results of violence are mainly impacting Bermuda's Black community, there is an imperative for all sectors of the community to ensure that they are part of the solution. The culture of silence that prevails in some parts of Bermuda, the view that it is another community's problem, is not what this island needs. It is only through collective unity and community participation that we can bring about the change I believe we all want to ensure in our communities, to stop families from having to endure this pain, to find the strength to heal, to implement policies that honor those we have lost, and to build a safer Bermuda and a brighter future. As I close out my introductory comments, I would like to again express my heartfelt condolences to the families who have lost loved ones, and again plead with persons in our community who have any information about the shooting of Miss Deontay Trim, the passing of 4 Bermudians in the Frisbee area over the weekend, or yesterday's shooting, to contact Bermuda Police Service or the confidential Crime Stoppers Hotline. The Bermuda Police Service have a difficult job to do, but it is made easier when they have the support and cooperation from the public. Thank you, and I now invite the Minister of Health to speak about the support services available to assist those in the aftermath of these tragedies, and also the proactive work on mental health that is essential to ensure that those who may be facing challenges in our community know that there is support available. Minister.
Good afternoon, everyone. I want to start by saying that my heart also aches as we reflect on the recent deaths of this week. I'm deeply saddened and shocked by the recent news. As a mother, my heart is breaking, along with yours. The loss of life that we've experienced this week is immeasurable. The loss of children and young people is a pain that defies words. There are no words to fully express the depth of our sorrow. Our hearts are heavy for the families and friends who are enduring this unimaginable pain. As a mother, I know the fierce love that we have for our children, the dreams that we hold for their futures. At this time of immense loss, it is okay to feel overwhelmed, angry, confused, or numb. Grief takes many forms, and there is no right way or wrong way to feel. As the Premier and the Minister of National Security have already indicated, our country has been deeply hit by these tragic losses. The pain we feel as a community is immense, and the mental and emotional well-being of our people has been profoundly shaken. In these difficult and testing times, we must pause, reflect, and support one another. If you or someone you know is struggling, please do not hesitate to seek help. We must be vigilant and compassionate, looking out for our neighbors, our friends, and our loved ones. Check in on each other, offer a listening ear, and pay attention to signs that someone may be struggling. Even a small gesture of kindness can make a significant difference in someone's life. Though these tragedies may not affect each of us directly, we are a close-knit community, and the ripples of these losses touch each and every one of us. It's often said that there are 6 degrees of separation, but in Bermuda, I think that's 3, because the ripple effects impact us all. Whether within your family, among friends, your church group, or any other workplace, someone you know is grieving. And let us come together to support one another and prioritize our mental and emotional health. The Ministry of Health wants to assure and reassure everyone that support is available for those that need it. If you're finding it hard to cope with these events or any other mental health issues, please reach out to the following agencies. The Mid-Atlantic Wellness Institute, and their main line is 239-1111, which connects to a 24-hour mental health crisis line, or call 236-3770. The Red Cross Psychosocial First Aiders, call 236-8253 between the hours of 9 a.m. and 4 p.m. Monday to Friday. And as we've indicated previously, the Family Center offers resources and support for parents and children experiencing grief. They provide a grief support and a tip sheet for parents covering topics such as creating a supportive environment, memorial activities for children, talking about a tragic death, managing fears and anxieties, recognizing and addressing grief in children, and seeking professional help. To access therapeutic grief support for children between the ages of 4 and 18 years of age, please call the Family Center at 232-1116 and ask to speak with a screener. I just want to take a moment to specifically address youth mental health. Record levels of youth and young people are struggling. Academic pressure, social media, bullying, poverty, lack of availability of professional mental health support, all have been named by various sources as contributing to this epidemic of poor mental health in our young people. The Department of Health has made significant strides in its ongoing commitment to bolster adolescent mental health support. Recognizing the crucial role that schools play in young people's lives, the department has initiated several key programs to build capacity amongst professionals who interact with children and adolescents on a daily basis. We have been investing in training for professionals who work with our young people, from educators to healthcare providers, to better understand and support the emotional well-being of children and teenagers. This includes learning how to recognize when young people may be struggling and how to connect them with the appropriate resources and support. By equipping health professionals and educators with the tools and knowledge they need, we are helping to foster a supportive and understanding atmosphere for our young people. And finally, if you are experiencing a mental health crisis, please call 911 at any time. Do not hesitate to contact these organizations for advice and support. We are our brother's keepers. Let us stand together in this time of sorrow, offering love, comfort, and support to those in need. Our community is strong, and we are caring for one another, and we will find the strength to heal and move forward. To the families and friends and loved ones of those who have lost their lives, we continue to extend our deepest sympathies, condolences, and our heartfelt prayers. Our community mourns with you, and we stand with you at this time of grief. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister of Health, for your touching words. I'm grateful for the work that your ministry and teams are doing to support the community and would encourage all to take advantage. These circumstances are difficult, but these resources can certainly help. I will now invite the Minister of National Security to address you and share what his ministry and teams are doing to support the social side of the police's enforcement efforts. Minister.
Good afternoon. I stand before you today with a heavy heart, deeply disturbed and disgusted by the recent surge in violence that has shaken our island. To hear the news yesterday that 2 young men were fatally shot near Fort Scott in Somerset shook me to the core. These gruesome murders brought the number of homicides in Bermuda in the past 6 weeks to 7. 7 murders in 6 weeks. These include the shocking discovery of 4 lifeless people inside their home in Pembroke, a home located within my own constituency. There is no doubt that these events have left our community in a state of pain, sorrow, and anxiety. First and foremost, I want to express my deepest sympathies to the families and loved ones of all those who have lost their lives. These senseless acts of violence have torn at the very fabric of our society, and we share in the grief and pain felt by those who knew and loved these individuals. My thoughts and prayers are with you during this incredibly difficult time. As the Bermuda Police Service investigates these incidents, I want to assure the public that the Ministry of National Security fully supports their efforts and that the police have our full support, including whatever resources they may require to bring those responsible to justice. However, we cannot do this alone. We need the community's help. I know you have heard me say this before, but the message must be repeated at this crucial time. If you have any information, no matter how significant you think it may be, please come forward. Your courage can make a difference. The police service cannot solve these crimes without your support. No police service can. I understand the reluctance and fear that may exist within our community, but it is vital for the safety and well-being of all that we stand together against this violence. The resilience of the Bermudian people is well known, and now, more than ever, we must rely on their community strength to put an end to this scourge. We must break the silence and overcome the fear that prevents us from providing information that can assist in bringing the perpetrators of these heinous acts to justice. If you are hesitant to speak directly to the police, you can call the Confidential Crime Stoppers Hotline at 800-8477. 800-8477. This hotline is staffed by people located overseas, ensuring your anonymity and security and privacy. I also want to take this opportunity to recognize the efforts of our essential service workers. They have been under pressure and on the front lines of these incidents. We know that theirs is a traumatic job when confronted with these incidents, and I thank them profusely for the manner in which they perform their duties. Their dedication and hard work do not go unnoticed and are deeply appreciated by all of Bermuda. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister. I extend my thanks to you and your team for the tireless efforts in assisting the community and working with young people with the aim of breaking the multi-generational cycle of violence. Now I will take questions, or we will take questions from members of the media.
Thank you, Ministers. The order will start with Mr. Lindsay, TNN Charlotte. Those your questions?
Thank you. Premier, the community is unsettled over many things. What would be your top priority?
The top priority, of course, is supporting the families who are impacted by this tragedy. And I think that's what's most important. You see with the ministers who are here, the colleagues that are here, I think the calls from across the community in support of the families. And so that's the number one space. Number two, of course, is ensuring that the police have the resources which are necessary to investigate these crimes. And the third thing is by making sure that we examine what it is that we have done, because we have increased support for mental health. We have seen success in the intervention with young people who have been on possibly going on the wrong path through the work of the gang violence reduction team and others, but it's clear that there's more that needs to be done. We focus on the tragedies, but we also know that there are stories of success. My colleagues will continue to work with young people, support families, and call on the community to make sure to be a part of those efforts as well.
Do you think Bermuda is in a state of emergency?
I think that Bermuda has challenges when it comes to violence. I think these recent incidents are certainly not the Bermuda that we want to see and the Bermuda of which we hope for. I think that it's important to note that while we do have these tragedies, there's also areas where our efforts in intervening with young people and trying to make sure that we prevent violence and violence escalation have borne fruit. If you look at the work the Bermuda Police Service has done over the past, even this year, they've recovered 6 firearms. That is 6 firearms that are off the street, operational firearms. So the work of which they're doing with the government support is there. But clearly, this is not a place where we want to be. And I know the news this weekend shocked many persons, and to follow on with the murder that we saw yesterday is incredibly tragic. And it is important that we make sure that we redouble the efforts. And what I've said to my colleagues know, is that I will make sure that the resources that are necessary are made available. You cannot be such a wealthy country and a wealthy society and not make sure that you put the resources where it has. We've increased resource for mental health. We've increased resource for police. We've increased resource for education. We've increased resource for young people. And where we find the need to do that more, we will do more.
This administration has won 2 elections since 2017. And part of your platform said you had the answers to the upsurge in gun violence as part of the leader. Do you still believe it?
Well, I think if you've seen over the history of the 7 years, we've made progress. There's been some years where there have been no murders, and there's been years where there has been violence as well. I think that it's important to note, and as I've said before, that these circumstances will not be turned around overnight. But we also have to look at the progress in some areas that have been made. The teams at the Ministry of National Security, over a number of ministers, have had success in intervention with young people, with the programs of which we have implemented in the work that is taking place in the schools. We want to save everyone. That is our desire, that is our goal. Sometimes we cannot, but that is not going to stop us from redoubling our efforts to make sure that we focus on trying to save our young people. But I think it's an also important message to parents as well, who are faced with these situations and circumstances, that you are not alone as well. If you see or feel that your young son or daughter may be going on the wrong path, please note that there are resources that can help. I've seen firsthand in families inside of my constituency and even in my own family where these have helped. And so I want to ensure the public that we are here to assist and that the support services provided by the government are able, and to make sure that people know that they can access those services.
Many do not believe that you are the person to lead the country out of this dilemma that we're facing. What are your thoughts?
I'm not going to get into a political discussion at a time when families are grieving. What we're going to do is continue to redouble and work the efforts of and support the efforts of the police and the helping agencies at this time.
Your discussions with the governor, have you sought outside intervention, outside help, and bringing in to help the Bermuda Police Service, Scotland Yard, possibly?
So what I would say is that from matters of operational policing, they're certainly with Government House and the police. The minister can speak more to any matters in relation to those discussions, but what I've made clear to the minister and to Government House is that the government will provide whatever support is necessary that the police feel that they require. You wish to add to that? You wish to add to that?
Travis, not much more to add from what the Premier said, but all avenues and possibilities are being investigated. So I don't want to rule out the fact that we may go to Scotland Yard, but we haven't gotten to that point at this point in time.
Police numbers are down to 360 or at one point around 400. Do we not think that we need more police officers? And I know an application has been put out for more police officers, but medians are not stepping on. What must you do to invite more to join the service?
Well, we definitely need more police officers, and we need more recruits in right across the uniformed services. So what we're doing now is looking at the whole recruitment process to make it easier, more 21st century compatible to trying to get the required recruits. So that's an ongoing process.
Yeah, well, the question is basically many Premier Burt may feel that education is still the key to ultimately solve many of our problems, but we have no faith in the present minister. Remember the department's protests. So my question is, why is this particular minister still in the job?
So let me speak to the matters of education, because education is tied into opportunity, and opportunity is one of the things that when we look at the social dynamics of community violence that is important. What we've done is we've increased resources to education. We've increased training through workforce development. We have a youth youth employment initiative that has seen young youth unemployment drop dramatically. We've seen more and more young people being able to go to work, and we're continuing to support persons, whether it's through free Bermuda College, free training, and access to those issues. So I would agree that education is the key, the tools that are necessary. And I think it's also important to note what the Minister of Health has said in regards to the work of which we're doing in emotional health in schools, which is also important. The additional resources that have been made available for mental health inside of our schools, additional training that is being done to support young persons, and the work that the Ministry of National Security through the Gang Violence Reduction Team inside of our schools are making sure to intervene, to understand. But I will again ask that it is not just the teachers who are equipped with those challenges, who are equipped with recognize the signs, but parents know that you can reach out for help and assistance if you feel you need it, and the support agencies of the government will be there to help.
Thank you, Trevor. Just as a reminder, members of the media, we're here to discuss the community tragedies. We're not turning this into a political back and forth. So with that, Jasmine, please field your questions to the Premier Ministers. Please keep it related to the subject matter. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, Premier. Just to start, as leader of the country, you're also a parent, and obviously adults are grappling with what's happening, but how do you explain this to young people, to young children, what's happening right now?
Well, it's very difficult to explain to young children. And I struggled yesterday. I had to call someone to talk to someone myself. I know the minister struggled yesterday. I know our colleagues have struggled. We've been personally impacted. There's been persons behind me who've worked with a young man who lost their lives yesterday. There's been families who've had to hold their friends and families who've been grieving, and their cousins and relatives, persons who they mentored and nurtured and poured life into. So it is difficult. And so from that aspect, I want to remind the persons who are watching that the government and helping agencies do have those resources available. The Family Center does an excellent job in relaying these matters related to grief. But I think in a longer term perspective, we have to remember that these are multi-generational items, multi-generational issues, and that the investment which is required in tackling the root causes. This is not just an enforcement issue. There has been good work that has been done, but we always have to look at what we've done, recognize and augment them, because there are success stories, but we need more success stories. And this government will not rest until we continue to work to save more of our young people.
And yesterday, the Ministry of Health obviously put out a number of phone numbers that people can call. Have you had much of a response from people reaching out for help?
Historically, that information is obviously confidential because there is a hotline. So we do monitor how many people are calling and the numbers and so forth. But insofar as whether there's been an increase as a result of this, that's information I can't disclose. But we do have, I think of more importance is the fact that those resources are available. And if someone does need help, then they are entitled to contact the Mid-Atlantic Wellness Institute or alternatively call the 911 so that they can have services immediately.
Mr. Jackson? Mr. Deacon?
Good afternoon, Premier, Ministers, MPs and Senators. Thank you for spending time today. It's a very difficult moment. I appreciate that. Premier, you outlined a series of initiatives that the government has undertaken over the months, years, to address these issues in the community, yet we're still seeing acts of violence like this. Why should people have confidence in the government and the police and their ability to stop these acts of violence?
So as difficult as it is for me to say, this is not just a Bermuda problem, this is a global problem. We've seen an increase in violence, specifically gun violence, across countries, whether it's countries in the region, over overseas territories, whether it's neighboring countries as well. And so from that aspect, it is a challenge. But what I will say is that there is no lack of determination. There is no lack of desire to make sure that there's additional resources made available. There has been additional resources that have been made available for mental health. I remember the police commissioner came to me a year and a half ago, said that he was looking for additional resources, hire specialist investigators to bring on more persons, to upgrade their systems, et cetera. And the government has made sure to provide that support. It is not going to be easy, but I think that it's important to note that there is progress that has been made. Would I like to say that I want there to be none? Absolutely. Do I believe that is realistic? I must be honest with the people of this country and say, unless we all come together and we are all honest with each other and make sure that when there are things that are taking place which are not right, that we go ahead and report those and end the culture of silence, it will be difficult for this government or any government to go ahead and to put an end to these issues. And so this is not just about us. We have provided the resources. We will provide more. It is vital that persons take advantage of those resources, but also parents have a vital role to play, as do members of the community.
You touched on resources, and the Minister Weeks touched on resources. We know that the policing levels are the lowest since the 1990s. What additional funds can you give the police now to help solve these issues? And are you looking at any short-term measures? The Minister mentioned Scotland Yard. Perhaps you could expand on that. And any of the short-term measures or resources that you might be giving investigators?
So what I would say is, I think the minister's question was in response to something that was mentioned by another reporter. I'm not going to speak to operational matters because that is not under the responsibility of the government of Bermuda. That is under the responsibility of the government house and the police. But I'll reiterate the comments which I've made before, is that when the police have asked for additional resources, those resources have been provided. The police commissioner came to me a year and a half ago, said he wanted to bring in additional officers. Those matters were not in the budget. We funded those matters in the budget. You remember we had an additional budget in 2022 after I came back to the Ministry of Finance that provided additional money to mental health, that provided additional money to the police service, that provided additional money to youth and family services. So we are committed to making sure that we increase those resources, and we will go ahead and do so.
You're committed to increasing those resources. Is that going to happen now?
Absolutely.
So
Just so we are clear, just so we're clear, how much do you put the price on a life? This is my point. And so from the perspective of the government of Bermuda, at any point in time, we must look at what we've done and identify where we can do more. And in the space where communities are hurting, in the space where families are dealing with unimaginable tragedy, it is not going to be an excuse to say that, oh, I must make sure to satisfy an outside ratings agency with a balanced budget when communities are hurting. That is the view, that is the attitude that is supported by my colleagues, that is supported by my caucus, and this government will make sure that we do that and support the agencies that require the additional assistance to make sure to deal with these particular challenges and make sure there are more resources available.
A question to the Minister, if I may. You did mention Scotland Yard. What's going on there?
When I mentioned Scotland Yard, it was just in response to a question from another reporter. No, I didn't say that. I said that the resources that may be needed by the police will be looked into. And things like Scotland Yard will not be ruled out, but we have not had any discussions on Scotland Yard.
So there's a possibility of bringing some short-term help in, perhaps?
Well, we're looking for any available resource, as the Premier had said, any resource that the police may need, the government will make available to them.
Just while you're here, Minister, the CCTV system, it was meant to finish this month. Is that still on track to finish this month?
We are more than 80% complete, and I'm very confident that they will be finished in the next few weeks.
Do we know if there's any CCTV at Scout Hill or anywhere else?
Well, I've had a preliminary as to the yesterday, and CCTV is only being looked at by the police. I don't know what system it is. The CCTV is being looked at by the police.
It's a general question. What's behind this? Can you speculate? Have you any idea, both Premier and Minister? What's the driving force? Because we're not seeing it just now. It's unprecedented now, but it's ongoing.
Well, to speculate as to what exactly behind it, I cannot answer that. I'm socially, academic. It's a whole lot of different things that's behind it.
No one thing.
I wouldn't say it's just one thing. No.
Just probably the final question, but a bigger picture really. We're an international business here. We rely on tourism here. The effect on the Bermudians here. How concerned are you about the bigger picture here? This is fairly unprecedented at the moment. It doesn't look good for Bermuda at the moment.
Is that for me?
Just a general picture, just on how you feel.
I think you would have heard in my comments that though these incidents are largely, the impacts of them are largely felt by the Black community of this country, they impact the entire community. And so you'd asked a question earlier about, whether additional resources be made available and other types of things. It's a question of what are the priorities of the government. And so I put a higher priority on life than I do on satisfying external ratings agencies. And I put a higher priority on life than it is in demonstrating to some artificial measure of, a country's financial well-being based upon a country's emotional well-being. And that is what is being challenged here. That's what strikes the core. I mean, trust me, our colleagues have cried with each other. This has not been an easy experience. As I mentioned to a person, I had to call someone in yesterday to talk because I was having difficulty coping. There have been persons who have been personally impacted. So it is felt. As the minister said, there's a number of different causes to this, whether they be social, environmental, matters related to mental health. That is the reason why we were proactive in increasing mental health resources across the community and for young persons. That is why we've been responsive in requests for additional assistance from the police. That is the reason why we provided additional funding to youth services and others so that the interventions and that young people can be engaged in more productive activities. And we're going to continue to make sure that we make more and more resources available. The feeling is not good, and that is why it is not just up to the government, but also the community. And I must reiterate again my call to parents. Sometimes we don't want to look in the mirror and say it's our child. Sometimes we want to say it's not. We know that persons in this community can be challenged. And please rest assured, parents, that the resources that are available within the government, you can reach out for help. You don't have to be in it alone. And together we can work to bring an end to this cycle. We have seen progress But times like this make us re-examine our efforts to make sure that we can make more progress.
Members of the media, we are mindful of the time. That's what this discussion is.
One last question. Premier Burt, we've had 5 people shot in the middle of town, 7 deaths since May 24th. The question is, why hasn't the U.S. addressed public on these matters? What is open to address?
I would have to say that I had a dresser. I work inside issues. I work with the Minister of National Security, work with my cabinet colleagues. Mr. Lindsay, I will answer your question. But I think that it's important to note that this is not around the work of which we may do in front of cameras. This is around the work that is taking place inside of communities. This is about the work of community MPs and others who have been there. This is about the work of persons like Senator Simmons, who's been with families, who's had to console, who's had to grieve, who had to organize support, the work is taking place here. So yes, some may call for those type of things. What is most important from my aspect is to ensure that the support is being provided to families, the communities, and making sure that the teams which are best equipped to deal with these problems with actions and not words are supported. Well, that's your opinion, Trevor. I would like to disagree, but thank you for your opinion.
Thank you, Trevor. Thank you. And that concludes our press review period. Do you have any final words, final comments for?
It can only be to reiterate, number one, my thanks to the ministers and their work, the first responders, my colleagues who have been instrumental in assisting with work on the ground and dealing with the tragedies of which we face and assisting families and assisting the community in this effort. And as a close, this is not just a government issue. The government will make resources available, but I urge citizens to please take advantage of those resources and reach out if you need help. Oftentimes, our resources are not fully utilized, and we want to assure persons that that help is available and encourage you, especially parents, if you feel that something is not right, please reach out. We are here to ensure that that support is provided. Thank you, and I will close with condolences again to the families that have been affected by these tragedies.
Thank you, Premier. Thank you, Minister. That concludes today's press.